It was a humid morning when three friends, Alex, Maya, and Jordan, decided to explore the uncharted forest at the edge of their town. The town was small, with dusty roads and houses surrounded by wild fields. Everyone knew the legends of the forest. "Don't go in after sunset," warned old Mr. Thompson. "Strange things happen there, things that can't be explained." Alex laughed. "That's just superstition. We'll be fine. It's daytime." Maya frowned. "I don't know, Alex. There's something unsettling about that place." Jordan, the most adventurous of the trio, grinned. "All the more reason to go. Imagine the stories we can tell after this adventure." With backpacks filled with water, flashlights, and snacks, they entered the jungle. At first, it was just like any other dense forest. Birds chirping, sunlight filtering through the thick canopy, and the occasional rustle of leaves from unseen animals. But as they walked deeper, the air became heavier, and the sunlight dimmed under the thick layers of trees. Strange symbols carved into tree trunks caught Maya's attention. "Do you see this?" she whispered. "It looks like some kind of ritual markings." Alex brushed it off. Probably just some kids messing around. Jordan, however, felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "Doesn't feel right. These symbols, they're old, really old." Hours passed as they walked, and the forest grew darker. A thick fog began to rise, curling around the trees and obscuring their path. Every now and then, they thought they saw shadows flitting between the trees, but when they turned to look, nothing was there. The sounds of the jungle changed too. The usual bird calls seemed replaced by strange, high-pitched whispers. Leaves rustled, though there was no wind. Something was watching them. As evening approached, they stumbled upon a narrow stream, the water dark and murky. Jordan suggested they set up a small camp for the night, but Maya was hesitant. "We shouldn't stay here. We need to find a safer place before it gets completely dark." Ignoring her, Alex started unpacking the small tent. As they set up, Jordan noticed footprints leading into the fog, far larger than any human. What made these?" he asked, pointing. Before anyone could answer, a sudden movement in the trees caught their attention. A shadow, moving quickly, too fast to be human. "Probably just a deer," Alex muttered, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. Maya's eyes widened. "No, that wasn't an animal. I felt eyes on us. Something is here." The forest grew colder as night fell. They lit a small campfire, but the flames flickered unnaturally. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist beyond the light's reach. Whispers rose around them, incoherent but urgent, as if warning them to leave. Jordan tried to lighten the mood. Okay, maybe it's just the wind. Let's sit, eat something, and relax. We're overthinking this." But as he spoke, the whispers grew louder. Words formed in his mind, words that were not in any language he knew. He tried to call out to Alex and Maya, but his voice faltered. Then came the first scream. A piercing, blood-curdling scream from somewhere deeper in the jungle. It wasn't one of theirs. It was human, yet distorted, like it came from some creature that had once been human, but was no longer alive in any sense they could understand. They froze. The fire flickered violently. The shadows danced across the trees, forming shapes that resembled faces, twisted and angry. Alex grabbed a flashlight and shone it into the darkness. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched intensified. Every sound, the snapping of a branch, the rustle of leaves, the distant drip of water, made them jump. The whispers turned into laughter, cold and cruel. They ran blindly through the jungle. The fog thickened, shapes formed in the mist, vague, human-like silhouettes, but every time they blinked, the shapes disappeared. The whispers turned into soft chanting, calling their names. Jordan froze, unable to move. They realized the jungle had trapped them. The deeper they tried to go, the further away the exit seemed. In a desperate attempt to escape, they ran without thinking until they stumbled onto a small clearing where the faint glow of lanterns from the town was visible in the distance. The forest behind them seemed to sigh, almost as if disappointed that they hadn't been caught. Exhausted and terrified, they collapsed near the edge of the jungle. The whispers had stopped, replaced by normal night sounds, crickets, distant owl hoots, and the soft rustle of leaves. Maya finally spoke, voice trembling. We survived, but I swear something is in that forest. Something alive and angry. Alex nodded silently. We need to go back tomorrow to find out what it wants. Jordan looked at them, pale and wide-eyed. No way. Never again. And yet, none of them could shake the feeling that they were being watched, even as they returned to the safety of their homes. Something had noticed them. Something had marked them. And it was only a matter of time before it came back.
After the terrifying night, Alex, Maya, and Jordan couldn't sleep. The whispers of the jungle haunted their dreams, and the images of shadowy figures lingered in their minds. Despite their fear, curiosity gnawed at them. Alex insisted, "We need to know what's in that forest. We can't just leave it like this." Early the next morning, they packed lightly and returned to the edge of the jungle. Mist clung to the trees like a living veil. Every sound, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, even the flowing of a small stream, felt amplified, eerie, and unnatural. As they ventured deeper, the forest seemed to grow taller and denser, as if it were swallowing them whole. The sunlight barely penetrated the canopy, leaving a twilight gloom all around. Jordan noticed that the same strange symbols they had seen yesterday were etched into almost every visible tree, and now they seemed to glow faintly with a sickly green hue. Maya shivered. This is wrong. We shouldn't be here." Alex waved her concern off, though his hands trembled slightly. "Just keep moving. Let's follow the path we found yesterday." The path was overgrown and twisted unnaturally, almost like the forest itself didn't want them to leave. Every few minutes, a shadow would flit across their line of sight, sometimes tall and humanoid, sometimes low and slithering. Each time they blinked, it vanished. Hours passed, and an oppressive silence fell. No birds sang, no animals moved. The only sounds were their hurried footsteps and the occasional snap of twigs. Then, in the distance, they heard faint chanting, words in a language they couldn't understand. The chanting grew louder with each step. Suddenly, a figure appeared between the trees, a pale, translucent apparition hovering a few feet above the forest floor. Its eyes were black voids, and it seemed to float without touching the ground. The trio froze. Jordan whispered, "Do you see that?" The ghost drifted closer, and the chanting turned into unintelligible murmurs that seemed to penetrate their minds. Alex's heart pounded. We need to run." They turned, sprinting through the undergrowth, but the jungle seemed to twist around them. Paths that led one way now led them deeper into the darkness. Fog thickened, forming shapes around them that looked like moving figures. Every tree seemed to have a face. Every shadow was watching. Maya screamed as something invisible brushed past her shoulder, leaving a cold, icy sensation. "It's following us!" Branches snapped under their feet, leaves clawed at their faces, and the chanting grew more intense. The apparition appeared again, hovering just ahead, then vanishing into the mist. They tried calling out to each other, but their voices sounded muffled, distorted. Hours, or maybe minutes, time seemed meaningless, passed before they stumbled into a small clearing. The fog here was thicker, and the ground was littered with remnants of old camps, tattered tents, broken cooking utensils, and strange ritualistic symbols drawn in blood on rocks and trees. Maya collapsed on the ground, trembling. This isn't natural. We're not supposed to be here." Alex scanned the clearing and noticed faint footprints leading deeper into the forest. Something compelled him to follow. He knew it was dangerous, but the forest seemed to whisper to him, calling him forward. Jordan grabbed his arm. "Alex, don't. We need to leave." The chanting rose to a deafening crescendo, echoing all around them. Suddenly, dozens of shadowy figures emerged from the fog, their forms shifting and writhing. The air turned icy cold, and the friends could see their own breath misting in front of them. The trio ran blindly, dodging the reaching shadows, stumbling over roots and rocks. The apparition from before appeared ahead, blocking their path for a moment before vanishing into the mist. They tried calling out to each other, but their voices sounded muffled, distorted. Hours, or maybe minutes, time seemed meaningless, passed before they stumbled into a small clearing. The fog here was thicker, and the ground was littered with remnants of old camps, tattered tents, broken cooking utensils, and strange ritualistic symbols drawn in blood on rocks and trees. Maya collapsed on the ground, trembling. This isn't natural. We're not supposed to be here." Alex scanned the clearing and noticed faint footprints leading deeper into the forest. Something compelled him to follow. He knew it was dangerous, but the forest seemed to whisper to him, calling him forward. Jordan grabbed his arm. "Alex, don't. We need to leave." The chanting rose to a deafening crescendo, echoing all around them. Suddenly, dozens of shadowy figures emerged from the fog, their forms shifting and writhing. The air turned icy cold, and the friends could see their own breath misting in front of them. The trio ran blindly, dodging the reaching shadows, stumbling over roots and rocks. The apparition from before appeared ahead, blocking their path for a moment before vanishing into the fog, leaving a lingering sense of dread. They reached a river, its waters black as ink. The chanting stopped abruptly, leaving a hollow, eerie silence. Exhausted and terrified, they sat by the riverbank, their hearts still pounding. Maya whispered, "We survived. Again. But I don't think the forest is done with us." Alex nodded slowly, realizing that the forest wasn't just haunted. It was alive, intelligent, and malevolent. Every tree, every shadow, every whisper had been observing them, marking them. And they understood now. The jungle wouldn't let them leave easily. As night fell, the fog thickened, curling around their camp like living tendrils. Eyes, countless tiny glowing eyes, peeked from the darkness. The friends huddled together, knowing that the night ahead would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. The forest whispered, promising that tomorrow the true horror would begin. The night was darker than any they had experienced before. Alex, Maya, and Jordan huddled near their meager fire, trying to regain their courage. The jungle around them was alive, filled with unseen eyes watching their every move. The fog thickened, curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. Each sound, an animal call, a snapping twig, even their own breathing, felt amplified, menacing, unnatural. Suddenly, the chanting began again, louder and closer than before. It was no longer faint, it surrounded them, echoing through the fog. The friends clutched each other, paralyzed with fear. Then, out of the mist, a tall, pale figure emerged. Its eyes glowed an unnatural red, and its movements were smooth yet impossible, like it was floating just above the ground. Maya screamed, It's following us!" Jordan grabbed Alex's arm. "We have to move, now!" They ran blindly through the twisted paths, but the jungle seemed to shift and warp, making familiar trails disappear. Every step took them deeper into darkness. Branches reached for them like clawed hands, and the fog formed shapes, twisted humanoid silhouettes that vanished when looked at directly. Alex tripped over a gnarled root, and something cold brushed past him. He screamed and scrambled to his feet, heart pounding. The chanting now seemed to speak their names, calling them forward, pulling them into the darkness. As they stumbled into a clearing, they saw dozens of shadows moving in a circle, as if performing a ritual. The ground was marked with strange symbols, and faint ghostly fires flickered around the figures. The apparition hovered in the center, turning slowly, its black void eyes locking on to the friends. Maya whispered, voice trembling, "We can't stop. We can't look away." The shadows suddenly lunged toward them. The friends ran, dodging grasping forms and stumbling through thick undergrowth. Each shadow seemed to anticipate their movements, appearing where they least expected. The fog became a living wall, closing in from all sides. Jordan yelled, "We need to split up. It might slow them down." Alex shook his head. "No, we stay together." A shadow reached out from the fog and wrapped around Maya's ankle, pulling her to the ground. Alex grabbed her hand, pulling her up as the entity shrieked, a sound that pierced their very souls. They ran again, faster than ever, branches tearing at their clothes, leaves scratching their skin. Hours, or perhaps mere minutes passed as they raced blindly. Exhaustion threatened to overtake them, but they dared not stop. The chanting faded briefly, replaced by low, haunting whispers, promising doom, despair, and eternal torment. Finally, they stumbled upon an old, moss-covered shrine deep within the forest. The apparition hovered above it, silent now, observing. The shrine seemed to pulse with energy, glowing faintly in the moonlight that barely penetrated the canopy. Alex's voice shook. This is what's controlling the forest." Maya and Jordan nodded, too terrified to speak. Every instinct screamed at them to run, yet some invisible force kept them rooted near the shrine. The shadows circled them, growing more agitated, moving faster. A sudden loud crack split the night as a massive branch fell near them. The force of the noise broke the trance-like hold of the forest. They turned and ran again, sprinting through the jungle as the shadows chased them relentlessly. Their lungs burned, legs ached, but adrenaline kept them moving. Hours later, exhausted, they collapsed near the edge of the jungle. The fog had lifted slightly, and the shadows seemed to retreat into the darkness. But the chanting lingered, soft now, almost inaudible, promising that the forest was far from done with them. Maya whispered, trembling, "We survived, for now, but I know it's not over." Alex nodded slowly. "We've seen enough to know the jungle is alive, and it's waiting for us." Jordan's face was pale and drawn. We've been marked, and someday it will come for us again. As they made their way back toward the town, the jungle behind them seemed to breathe, a living entity, patient and malevolent, already planning their next encounter. And in the shadows, faint glowing eyes watched silently, waiting for the moment the friends would return.
Night had fallen, thicker and darker than before. Alex, Maya, and Jordan found themselves back in the heart of the jungle, trapped within twisting paths that seemed to have no end. The fog clung to them like living tendrils, carrying whispers that called their names. Every shadow shifted unnaturally, following them silently, waiting. The trio stumbled into a wide clearing, dominated by an ancient, crumbling shrine covered with moss and carved with strange, glowing symbols. The apparition from before hovered above it, eyes glowing red in the darkness. The chanting resumed, louder, forming words that pressed uncomfortably against their minds. Maya whispered, trembling, It's here. It knows we're afraid." Alex swallowed hard. "We have to move. We have no choice but to run." As they turned to flee, shadows erupted from the fog in all directions, reaching out with ghostly hands. Branches seemed to stretch and grab at them, roots twisted underfoot to trip them. The forest itself had become a predator. Jordan screamed as he felt an icy touch brush across his neck. "It's on us! Don't let it touch you!" They ran blindly, dodging snapping branches and writhing shadows. The apparition appeared ahead, floating silently for a moment, then disappearing into the fog as if to guide them deeper into the nightmare. The chanting became a deafening roar, pressing into their minds like a living force. Suddenly, Maya tripped near an old stone altar, half buried in moss. Alex grabbed her hand and pulled her up just as a shadow lunged toward them. The three friends sprinted past the altar and plunged into the dense forest, every sense screaming danger. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The fog thickened, shapes forming in every direction. The forest itself seemed alive, twisting and turning, trying to block their escape. But the friends pressed on, hearts pounding, lungs burning. At last, they glimpsed a faint glow, lanterns from the edge of the jungle, the path back to safety. Hope surged. They ran faster, adrenaline driving them past the grasping shadows and whispering fog. As they crossed the final stretch, the apparition appeared one last time, hovering silently above the path. Its black void eyes seemed to pierce their very souls. Then, with a silent, piercing shriek, it vanished. The fog lifted, and the forest fell silent. Exhausted and terrified, the trio collapsed at the jungle's edge. The whispers were gone, replaced by the normal sounds of night. Crickets, distant owl calls, the gentle rustle of leaves. Maya whispered, We made it, but I know it's not over. It's still out there." Alex nodded slowly. "We've seen enough to know the jungle is alive, intelligent, and it's patient. It's waiting for the moment we return." Jordan shivered. "We've been marked. Whatever it is, it will come back for us someday." As they staggered toward the town, the jungle behind them seemed to breathe, a living entity, patient and malevolent, its unseen eyes still watching. The friends knew that the night would haunt them forever. And deep in the heart of the forest, the whispers continued, soft and sinister, promising that the story was far from over.